Amit Mehta, said he was considering issuing a gag order to make Michael Sherwin be quiet and stop saying the quiet part out loud. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, the most powerful appellate court in the country, just ordered the DOJ to start distinguishing between actual criminals and people who walk through open doors inside the Capitol building. That ruling came after the DOJ tried to convince a judge that two defendants, Lisa Eisenhart and her son, Eric Munchell, should face indefinite detention. Now, neither Lisa Eisenhart nor her son damaged any property at the Capitol or committed any violence. They just walked in to what we used to refer to as the People's House. And yet somehow Joe Biden's Department of Justice convinced a trial judge that Lisa Eisenhart was a, quote, threat to our republic, and that her son was a, quote, would-be martyr. Keep in mind, these are people whose crime was trespassing in the Capitol. We're not endorsing that, but some perspective, please. It took a ruling from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to bring that perspective. Quote, two individuals who did not engage in any violence and who were not involved in planning or coordinating the activities seemingly would pose little threat, the appellate panel wrote. Yeah, seemingly. But the judges still didn't release Eric Munchell or his mother, Lisa Eisenhart. That's how much power federal prosecutors have. They can keep you in prison even when a three-judge appellate panel concludes there is no reason for you to be in prison. And that's probably why prosecutors still have not, as of tonight, released a man called Jacob Chansley, otherwise known as the Chewbacca guy. You may remember him. Like Eric Munchell and his mother, Lisa Eisenhart, Jacob Chansley is not accused of committing any act of violence. He's not accused of breaking any property. So what exactly did he do? Well, we can actually answer that question because it's on video.
Hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you. Yes. You good, sir? You need medical attention?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I got shot in the face. I got shot in the face with some kind of plastic bullet.
Any chance I can get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know this is like the sacredest place.
I know.
Yeah, he's a threat to the republic, that American flag and all. Chewbacca guy is still in jail. He'll be there indefinitely. Before you shrug that off, think about what that's actually like. You don't want to think about it. Tonight we learned that a number of people arrested on January 6th are still rotting in the D.C. jail, the municipal lockup. That's one of the foulest places in this country. It's a truly repulsive and mismanaged place. Ask anyone from Washington, D.C., what would you do not to be thrown into the D.C. jail? It's that bad. Some of the people held from January 6th, they've been beaten, not surprisingly, by guards. They're beaten badly. Lawyers for one man, a man called Ryan Samsel, say he was beaten by guards so badly he has a skull fracture and he's now blind in one eye. How many Antifa rioters or BLM vandals can say that? Do they lose their eyesight from being beaten in jail? Well, as a group, they didn't spend much time in jail, actually. Most were sprung on bail immediately when politicians like Kamala Harris helped them pay to get out. Last summer, for example, authorities released a terrorism suspect in Oklahoma called Eric Christopher Ruffin after Black Lives Matter posted his $750,000 bond. According to authorities, Ruffin, quote, encouraged others to burn an Oklahoma County sheriff's van in an Oklahoma City bail bonds business May 30th. The van was destroyed. The bail bondsman had $8,850 in damage from broken windows. But Eric Christopher Ruffin went home, and he went home for one reason. Unlike the Chewbacca guy, he did not upset the people in charge. He didn't walk in their sacred chamber, talk about liberty and rights. He just tried to vaporize some police vehicles. And that's exactly what our political class wanted him to do. So he's a hero. He's fine tonight. He hasn't lost his eyesight getting a beating in the D.C. jail. This kind of thing, unequal treatment under the law, is on stark display across the country right now. We could spend an hour giving you examples. Here are a couple. On Saturday, police say a criminal released on emergency coronavirus bail stabbed an elderly Asian woman to death in Riverside, California. The suspect is called Darlene Montoya. She was in jail for a very serious crime. She'd been accused of assault with a deadly weapon. But is that really as serious as meandering through the Capitol building? No, come on. It's not insurrection. So Darlene Montoya got to walk out of jail and find someone else to hurt. In December, a New York judge released a murder suspect called Jordan Benjamin, just in time for Benjamin to go out and allegedly stab a woman in the stomach. Jordan Benjamin then got out of jail again. Meanwhile, in the city of Detroit, a judge decided to release 4 felons who'd been convicted of criminal sexual assault and another 14 people who'd committed assault. The judge said that coronavirus justified their release. Well, according to prosecutors, one of those felons went out and raped 3 women at knife point. Why haven't you read this? Nobody covers it. It happens too often to notice. But in March, one of those murders was caught on video. And so you may have seen this. It was impossible to ignore. It happened in Washington, D.C. 2 teenage girls, one 15, one 13, carjacked and then killed a Pakistani immigrant driver called Muhammad Anwar. Had a bunch of kids just trying to work, trying to make a buck. As Anwar lay dying on the sidewalk, and this gives you a sense of where these girls are coming from, one of them complained that the real crisis was she couldn't find her cell phone.
She's stealing her car.
You still in the car?
Yeah, we called the cops. Call the cops. They stole the car. These girls stole the car.
Hey, come on, come on.
Hey, they stole the car. They stole the car. These girls.
Go, go.
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it.
Everybody step back. Underneath, everybody step back from the car.
So you kill a guy who's just trying to work, and then you can't even be bothered to notice as he dies on the sidewalk because you're worried about your phone. There's a big problem with these girls. They're young, for sure, but they did something awful. They're not being treated that way. They got a plea deal. According to news accounts, they will be released as soon as they turn 21, maybe earlier. There's a good chance that Chewbacca guy will spend more time in jail for trespassing with an American flag than the people who killed Muhammad Anwar will spend for murder. And that's not an accident, actually, this disproportionate treatment of crimes. If you're an autocrat, the biggest threat isn't people who commit actual violence. You can use them as your shock troops, and the people who run our country certainly have. The biggest threat to you if you're an autocrat is people who mock you and don't take you seriously and sneer at you. You want them in prison, and they're putting them in prison. Candace Owens is the host of Candace. She joined